Hey guys, welcome back. So I mentioned in my previous 100th video special that one of my life goals is to be able to eat a chicken strip combo from Wendy's whenever I want. And every time I tell people that I have this life goal, I always get laughed at, right? People always laugh at me and they think it's a joke or whatever. But I just want to state for the record that I'm being completely serious about this, okay? So I think most people don't realize how expensive fast food actually is and how much you'd actually have to make per year to be able to afford to eat fast food every day if you were to actually eat it every day. So I hope by the end of the video I'll justify to you why Wendy's is actually a restaurant that's meant for the uber rich. So this should be a fun video, and without further ado, let's jump in. Okay, so we're gonna ignore the potential cost of healthcare that you would need if you actually ate fast food every day. So we're just gonna focus on the cost of the food itself. And assuming no negative health effects. So I mentioned back in previous video, in my 100th video special, that in my high school, I had a friend who used to order a chicken strip combo from Wendy's every single day. So, you know, he ate it all the time, and it was about $12 per meal after taxes. And I haven't had a chance to verify if it's still $12. So I haven't been to Wendy's recently because I can't afford to go. But let's assume that it is still $12. So as I said, I'm assuming that you eat the chicken strip combo every day for lunch. And let's say you spend $12 a day on lunch. Now, I assume that most people eat more than just lunch, right? Most people eat 3 meals a day. So, you know, for the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to assume that you spend $12 on groceries that are needed to make breakfast and dinner. So, you eat breakfast and dinner on like just groceries that you have at home, and then you spend $12 on lunch at Wendy's. So let's just say that you spend $24 on food, groceries, and the Wendy's combined every day. So assuming 30 days a month, that's $720 per month. Now, what kind of income would you have to justify spending $720 per month on food? Well, most people have other obligations that they pay for, right? If it was just food, then it would be no problem, right? Believe me, I would love to spend 100% of my income on food because you guys know how much I love food, but unfortunately, that just isn't realistic, right? So most people, including myself, have other obligations that I need to spend money on other than just food. So experts recommend you only spend about 10 to 15% of your income on food. So let's just assume 10% for the sake of making the math simple. Therefore, in order to support your Wendy's addiction, you'd have to make $7,200 per month. Now that adds up to $86,400 per year if you're doing the math at home. So as you can see, this is already quite a substantial amount of money that you have to make to support your Wendy's addiction. But that's not the end of it, because don't forget about taxes. Now, of course, taxes will obviously vary depending on where you live, but let me just take Ontario as an example, right? So if you live here in Ontario, in order for you to actually take home $86,400 per year, you'd actually have to make about $125K per year. Again, it depends on where you live, but some places you might have to make a little more, some places you make a little less. I'll leave a link to the tax calculator thing that I use to calculate this, so you know, I'll leave it in the description down below, and you can like play around with the numbers yourself. But anyways, as you can see, things can get out of hand really fast and really quickly. So to reiterate, in order for you to be able to comfortably afford a chicken strip combo from Wendy's here in Ontario, you would have to make about $125K per year. Also keep in mind, this is just for one person's budget, right? So I'm just talking about for one person. So even if you make $125K per year, if you have kids or if you have anyone in your family that's dependent on you, all of this just goes out the window, okay? So don't get me started even if you want dessert, right? Like what if you wanted a Frosty to go with your chicken strips? Or what if you want an apple pie? You'd have to pay extra, and all of a sudden you can't afford it. You'd need to make more than $125K, right? You need to make the big bucks. So, you know, if you don't make the big bucks, you can just forget about eating at Wendy's, right? So I can't afford it, obviously. Maybe you can afford it. I don't know your financial situation, but I can tell you for a fact that I'm making nowhere near $125K per year. So I can't afford to eat at Wendy's at the moment right now. And this brings me back to my original point, which is something that you might not agree with, but I'm going to say it anyways, which is my bold claim that Wendy's is a place for rich people. Now, change my mind, right? You know, people often think of steakhouses as expensive restaurants, and sure, they are. You might drop like $100 easily on a trip to a steakhouse, But, you know, honestly, how often are you going to go to a steakhouse per month, right? You might only go like once or twice a month. In contrast, I think Wendy's is much more expensive because, you know, you go very often, right? And every time you go, and if you order a chicken strip combo, it's like, here's $12, here's $12. And then if you go like 4 or 5 times a week, that can add up really quickly. Okay, so moving on. Next topic I want to talk about today was I was talking to a colleague at work the other day, and he saw my video on how I saved 70% of my income and how I broke down my budget in that video. So in that video, I was talking about the car that I'm financing, which is a 2019 Volkswagen Jetta. And he was like, dude, why are you financing a Jetta? Because I realized a Jetta is not really a fancy car, okay? So usually people finance more luxurious or higher performance cars like a BMW or Mercedes. And yes, the Jetta is a very slow car. I can verify that for sure. I can like floor the gas pedal and nothing will happen, right? So I'm pretty sure I have the slowest car out of all my friends who own cars. I ain't winning any street races in the Jetta anytime soon. I can guarantee you that. So financing a Jetta does seem like very confusing for a lot of people, and most people think, oh, it's such a cheap car, why don't you just pay it off, right? So given the size of my stock portfolio, I could definitely sell some of my stocks and pay off the car right away if I wanted to. So I thought I'd speak a little on why I didn't pay it off and why I haven't paid it off. And the reason is, as I mentioned in my 70% income video, I'm paying 0% interest on financing this vehicle. And due to this concept called time value of money, it actually works out better in my favor if I drag out this loan for as long as I can because it is 0%. So I'm actually saving a lot of money by dragging it out for a long time rather than paying it off right away. And to brush up on this concept for those of you who might have forgotten what time value of money is, time value of money is the principle that states that money now is worth more than money in the future. So the example that I always give that illustrates the time value of money is I ask the question, would you rather have $100 now or $10 million 1,000 years into the future? I think for most of us watching this video, we'd opt for $100 now rather than $10 million 1,000 years into the future. And the reason is that, face it, none of us watching this video is going to be here 1,000 years from now. So you know, having $10 million 1,000 years from now is going to be absolutely useless to you because you'd be dead, right? So in the previous example, you can see that the value of money kind of degrades over time, right? So if I give you $100 now, which I'm not going to, by the way, this is just an example, don't get excited. So, but if I were to give you $100 right now, you can actually go out and spend it, right? Versus if I promise to give you $10 million 1,000 years from now, that is useless to you. Now, as you can see, if you have a loan, it kind of works out in the opposite way, where if your interest rate is low, then you should drag out your loan for as long as you can because the value of that like loan will degrade over time, right? The value of your debt would degrade over time. And then if you can drag out a low interest rate loan for a really long time, then you win because like of the time value of money, right? Because the value of the debt goes down. So in other words, because I'm paying 0% interest, if I'm paying off the loan right away, I'm actually losing a little bit of that time value. So let me make this more concrete actually. So I made this spreadsheet, which I know kind of looks complicated. I promise it's not. I'll explain the things, okay? So my car loan is for 6 years and paid monthly. That's 72 months or 72 payments in total. And each payment is $451.26. So if you add up the full amount, that's $32,490.72. And that includes taxes. So if I were to pay for the car up front, that's the amount of money that I have to put up right away in cash if I were to pay off the car up front, assuming that I just bought the car in cash. Now this is where we want to determine the discount rate. So you can think of this as the rate that you can invest your money at. So this is kind of like the opportunity cost you lose by just giving the money to the car dealership right away and buying the car in cash outright. So for example, if you paid the car in cash, you'd be out of $32,000 right away, right? So you would have $32,000 less to invest. But if you finance the car, you can invest the $32,000 in the time that it takes for you to, in the process it takes for you to pay off the car, and you can pocket the difference between what you make off of your investments and the interest rates that you have to pay on the car itself, which in this case is 0, right? So for example, if I invested at a rate of 2%, which is very low for those of you who know anything about interest rates. So if I bought like GICs or something, or like a government bond or something that's almost guaranteed to be risk-free, if I use 2% as a discount rate, then if I adjust this to a monthly rate, because remember we are dealing with monthly payments this time, so adjusting this to a monthly rate and then we discount all the payments to present values and then add them up, you can see that I'm effectively paying like almost $1,900 less for this car compared to just paying in cash. And once again, this is assuming I take like no risk, right? I invest in something that's really safe. So I always talk about using 8% though as a benchmark. So this is like sort of a benchmark as what you can expect to get from like just the general stock market as a whole if you invest in like index funds or something in the long term, right? So again, we have to adjust this to a monthly rate. So, why don't we take on some risk by investing in the stock market instead? And keep in mind, we're just putting our money into like index funds. We're not even picking stocks at this point. So as you can see, the present value in this case drops down to about $26,000. So this means that if you can invest at an 8% annual rate, you're effectively only paying like $26,000 for this car instead of $32,000 as we mentioned earlier. So let's go through one more scenario though, assuming a 15% annual rate of return. And we're using 15% as our discount rate. Now, this is, if you can get 15% off of your investments per year, you're doing really well, right? So that means you're probably picking stocks and you're good at picking stocks and you're doing a lot of research and you're putting a lot of effort into finding good companies at discount prices. But I think that this is still possible, right? Obviously, this is not impossible. In fact, my trailing 12 months return is a lot higher than 15%. Last time I checked, it was something ridiculous, like 160% or something like that. But obviously, this is completely unsustainable in the long term. I don't expect to make 160% every year, right? That's impossible, pretty much. So, I got a few lucky breaks with like Tesla and whatnot, and that's what contributed vastly to my portfolio gaining so much. But yeah, in the long term, don't expect anywhere near 160%. But I'm just saying, if I can get 15% at least annual rates of return in the long run, that's still very, very good. So assuming a 15% discount rate, you can see that I'm effectively paying under $22,000 for this car, which is literally like 2/3 of the cash price, right? So I'm literally getting like a 30 to 40% discount just by like financing this deal if I can invest the money at 15%. So my point is, if you're wondering why I don't pay off the car right away, this is why, right? So if you want to get good at personal finance and budgeting and stuff like this, you really got to understand the time value of money. There's no like alternative, right? You have to understand this. And this is especially relevant today because we're living in a time when interest rates are at historical lows. So if interest rates are low and you're the borrower, what you can do is you can drag on your low interest rate payments for like a really long time, and then you can benefit from this, right? So, last time I checked, mortgage rates are like super low, right? Mortgage rates are like 1.84% or something like that, right? For a 5-year mortgage. So I'm just saying, right? If you own real estate at the moment, it's probably a good time for you because you can drag out your loan for a really long time and just pay 1.84%, which is absolutely amazing. And you can probably invest and get a return higher than 1.84%. So my point is that getting good at investing and personal finance, sometimes it just boils down to finding a good rates of return, right? So if you can invest your money at a good rate of return, and if you can borrow money at a low interest rate, then you can pocket the difference between what you invest in and what you have to pay in interest. Anyways, that's all I want to talk about today: fast food and slow cars. So I'll leave the video here. Be sure to hit the like button if you enjoyed the video, and consider subscribing if you like this series. Be sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram, links down below in the description as always. And with that being said, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.